Welcome to the Present and Sober podcast with your hosts, Sam Goldfinch and Ellie Crow. If you want to make your life bigger, not smaller, then this is the podcast for you. If you can sense that you're destined for more and you're curious about how drinking could be holding you back, listen in and come on this journey with us. Through the interplay of mind and body practices, we will help you elevate your daily life and discover the wonder and potential of going alcohol-free. Let's make life bigger together.
I didn't share this earlier, but I'll share it now. I mean, I mentioned I have two brothers that are, actively in AA. I've had two sisters that have succumbed their lives to addiction, and one from alcohol and one from food. And I want to do this for them and for their children and for their grandchildren, for all of my nieces and nephews, for my friends, their family, their children.
Hey team, this week Ellie and I are welcoming our really great friend Lynnie McGivern to the show, and this is so exciting because we met Lynnie in the world of This Naked Mind, and I'm not going to give too much away because Lynnie just gives such a wonderful breakdown of her story. It's so inspirational, her story to becoming alcohol free, and it's just such a wonderful example of how with the right community and outlook and container we can very, very quickly come to a place in life where we haven't just stopped drinking, but where we're truly free in both a time frame and to a degree that a lot of people out there maybe don't even know is possible. So that's why we wanted to get Lynnie on, because she's an absolute inspiration and she's going to make waves. She's also got a really cool announcement that she makes at the end of the podcast, so make sure you hang around for that. Okay, without further ado, I'll hand you over to me, Ellie and Lynnie. See you there. Hello, lovely listeners. Now, this is really exciting. We've got Lynnie McGivern with us. And this is exciting because how me and Ellie met Lynnie is within a This Naked Mind Path group. So we've had the absolute pleasure and joy of getting to know Lynnie over the course of the last, 8 months, 9 months?
We're into 8 months.
Yeah, and it's been an absolute pleasure. And so before I let Lynnie go wild and tell us her awesome story, I also want to draw attention to something absolutely brilliant today, which is that Ellie Crow's voice has disappeared. Why don't you say hello, Ellie Crow?
Well, hello. Husky McHusky.
It's just so good.
So Sam has had a gift bestowed upon him, as have my children, because as Chester got up at 4:00 this morning looking for his iPad, and I'm shouting at him, this is what was coming out. So I might be very quiet on this episode, but I'm thrilled to have Lynnie here because it's been wondrous to see her journey on the path. And she's got some really exciting personal / professional news to share. I'm not going to break cover on that because I did that in the path, outed her in the path. But yeah, it's a real joy. So I'm super thankful to have you here, Lynnie.
Awesome. Welcome, buddy.
Well, thank you both very much. I could not be more thrilled to be talking to you in this space. You both individually and collectively are part of my journey. I mean, you have been instrumental on a daily basis, you and my other coaches, to this moment right here. So thank you. It's my privilege to be here. And I look forward to every time I get to see you guys in a coaching call or on a FAQ. It's just awesome. So.
That's so lovely to hear. And the feeling's mutual, pal. It really is. So, hey, we are so excited to hear your story because, as coaches in the path, one thing we haven't experienced is the path from your side of the fence, right? And we know it's an incredible thing, but we would love to hear what it was like at the beginning, like what's happened for you through that. And then we're going to, basically come full circle on this with something super exciting. So make sure you hang around for that. So, where makes sense to start, buddy? Is it when you joined the path? Do you want to give us a little bit of info about how you made that decision, or start where makes sense?
I'll give you just kind of a quick background of how I arrived in my 55 years that actually I just turned this week. So,
birthday.
I grew up one of 11 children in a big Irish Catholic family, and alcohol was taboo. I mean, from the very beginning, we were raised, don't drink. Our father had a real fear and a legitimate fear. He was raised, my grandfather, whom I never met, was, for all intents and purposes, an alcoholic. I don't subscribe to that term myself anymore. But we grew up fearing alcohol. We were not permitted to drink. And if we did, we paid the consequences of that. Mm-hmm. And so there was a healthy fear there. I probably took my first real drink when I was 14 in the 8th grade. Growing up with older siblings, I was kind of in the middle of the pack, or the oldest of the second half, as my mom would have said. Having older siblings, you had access to alcohol, because even though it was the forbidden fruit, of course, we all wanted to try it, right? Because when parents say, don't do that, what do?
Sure.
You're curious, right? And I can remember, like it was yesterday, an older sibling, and I won't reveal their name, who provided me a bottle of Jack Daniels to take to a birthday party when I was 14, an overnight party. And I can just remember just being the cool kid that showed up with that, and all of us getting sick the next day. So that was kind of the beginning of the beginning. Then I moved into high school. I was a student athlete, again, super fearful of my father, and remained fearful of him until probably the last decade, honestly. And both kind of out of reverence, as well as, just the way that I was raised. High school was a great time. A lot of people can't say that. I had a wonderful high school experience, and still have the most amazing friends. In fact, a pack of them are coming up this next week. And we've been out of high school almost 40 years. So it's pretty special.
Yeah.
Dabbled a little bit in high school. Again, I had an older sibling in high school. And so it was kind of like, hey, you're going to drink because I'm drinking. So if I get in trouble, then you get in trouble, kind of a thing. And so there was some shared experience there. But I didn't drink much in high school. Again, I was really busy doing my studies and trying to please my father. I spent a lot of my life as a child and into my adult life trying to impress my father. He was is still, by the grace of God, still alive. A very successful person, very driven person, with limited education, formal education. And so I always thought of him as a really strong role model. But also, I was a girl and I had 6 brothers, and there were 6 boys, 5 girls. And there was a real difference in how we were treated, and not disrespectfully, there was just different expectations. And the expectation of the boys made me want to be a boy. I was like, I want to be looked at in that way. So I really kind of led my life to impress my father like the boys did. And so move on from high school into college. Went to a private Catholic college and played sports. Again, it was super intense academically. I partied, but not a whole lot. I mean, the demand of doing well in sports and not getting in trouble, not getting kicked off the team was super important. And so moved out of college, obviously graduated, went into my professional life, had a wonderful group of friends, and drinking was really kind of just social, and it was fun. It was super fun. I mean, it wasn't something that I used to cope with life. It was just part of, going out on a Friday night. And I remember having a couple of really close friends, and this is humorous for me to think about now, where, 3 or 4 of us would buy a 12-pack and we would split it, so that was 3 or 4 beers each. And, fast forward, that was just warming up when I got to drinking, But go through college, have a lot of fun, get out of college, social drinking was just part of what we did. It wasn't anything that I had to have. It was just part of life. You go to a sporting event or you go to a concert and you drink, kind of move on, got into some relationships where drinking was a little bit more prevalent. And I had a funny little joke I used to tell my mom. Gosh, if I ever start drinking wine, that means I'm old. Well, guess what? I got old pretty quick.
Yeah. Because
guess what? Wine makes you feel a little funny a little quicker, right? So, fast forward, you go from beer to wine. And then as I've been in this program, and this will come full circle, I have gone back and reflected a lot, as much as I could, to remember experiences back when I was in, high school, college, and after college. And now that I have the knowledge of how alcohol works in our body, I can go back and start to, I can remember things that occurred along the way that now make a lot of sense. One specifically, and this was kind of in my high school days, where I really didn't drink a lot, but when I did, I was that girl in the back seat that was crying. We had a couple of beers, but a song would come on and I would get all emotional and kind of sad and depressed. And it was always kind of in and around a boy who always liked my best friend or something like that. But I remember crying a lot, drinking alcohol. And so again, we'll come back to that. But as I moved into more of my adult life and decided I wanted more in my education, I was a physical therapist, actually. That was my undergraduate degree. And then I went on to law school because I wanted that punishment, I guess. And really something interesting about going to law school, we had this orientation, and I find this really fascinating now. I was kind of perplexed by it when it was happening, but during the orientation process, we had 3 different lawyers come and speak with us about substance abuse as part of our orientation, because there's a high prevalence of substance abuse in the legal field. And, they would come in and give a talk, and we'd all go out and drink and talk about the talk. It was super interesting. And now I have a better appreciation of that. But, that was it's almost 23 years ago. And so, that was kind of interesting for me to kind of go back and reflect upon that. Got out of law school, started working in a little bit more intense environment, and my drinking changed. It was it was social, but I could kind of see myself, as I've gone back to reflect on how I used alcohol in my life. I was using it to cope with feelings that I just didn't want to feel. I went through the whole relationship thing and discovering who I was as a person. I had dated a lot of different people. Raised Catholic, of course, it was, taboo not only to drink in our family, but you were raised to, marry the opposite gender and have children and move on and have a happy, healthy life. I discovered that I was gay as a probably in my mid to late 20s. And that was a pinnacle moment of my life that really was very scary and was something that was very painful, especially with my relationship with my father. And so reflecting back, I know I used alcohol to try to cope with not being good enough and not being the person that my parents thought that they had raised. I obviously have come through that on the other side. But as life kind of continued, again, I could see as my stressors in life got more intense, my drinking got more intense. And I wasn't a daily drinker at all. And of course, that doesn't matter. I used to think, like many, people that have alcohol problems drink alcohol all the time. But the way I drink it, as I've been able to reflect back, it was just not a healthy thing for me to do. I was spending, Friday, Saturday, Sunday relaxing, and that's what I would call it. I would tell whomever I was with, and most recently, I'm married, and I would tell my wife, I'm going to go relax, and she knew what that meant, and that was always kind of a defense mechanism. I wanted to escape. And I didn't really want to be with anybody. I wanted to go into my space. And sometimes that was my office. Sometimes that was the bathtub. Sometimes it was outside. And I just wanted to drink, and I didn't want anybody to bother me and just let me do my thing. So that continued. And, the fallout of that, I had many instances not remembering. Drinking enough to pass out. Sometimes I've been a horrible sleeper my whole life. you may have heard me joke about this on the path, but I've tried all these different things to help myself sleep, including purchasing a very expensive sleep number bed. And by the way, it wasn't the bed that was the problem. It was what alcohol was doing in my system at 3 a.m. So some $10,000 later, I learned that, but hey, it's still a pretty comfortable bed nonetheless. But going through, relationships and, going on vacations and, you're all inclusive and getting hammered and not knowing what you did the night before was, I wouldn't say an everyday thing, but it was, one time was too frequent, and it was more than one time where I would have these moments of blackout or brownout. And how I would discover that they happen, in particular in the last 12 years of my marriage, would be I would roll over and nobody's in the bed with me. I was like, oh shit. What did I do last night? Because my spouse is no longer here, which meant she didn't either, feel comfortable or just did not want to have anything to do with me. And then to get up and have to deal with that fallout in the morning and, walking on eggshells. And I'm so grateful. She's been extremely forgiving and has loved me through all of this. And it's not been easy. And I wouldn't say I was in denial that I had an interesting relationship about alcohol. I just didn't really want to face it, kind of a thing. Again, I think kind of out of fear. And, I had been in other relationships where, in particular, one relationship where the individual was an active member of AA. And I probably should have started back with that. And I had gone to some meetings with this individual because I wanted to know, and this was well before I thought I had an interesting relationship with alcohol. But going into that environment, I can remember distinctly the first time I went to a meeting to support this individual. I'm listening to all these stories and the tears just roll down my face. And I'm like, I'm no different than these people, And then there was this just fear, like, holy crap, I'm an alcoholic, or am I, kind of a thing. And then I went into these meetings and I never felt comfortable. I did it for quite a while. In fact, I joined AA and got a sponsor. And a lot of people don't know that. They'll be learning that for the first time, and that's all well and good. But I never really felt like I fit into that cult, and that's the word that I use. And it's nothing against that program. I have two brothers that are actively involved in AA, and I'm very proud of both of them. They have multiple years of sobriety, and that program has done them both wonders, but I don't think that they have what I have, and we'll circle back to that as well. But I do remember that just distinctly of this is interesting, but this doesn't work for me. And I didn't drink for quite a bit of time, I think over a year. I just embraced this, I'm not going to drink. And I've done that a couple different times in my life. One time multiple times I gave it up for Lent, right? Don't chew your fingernails and don't drink alcohol for 40 days. That was always good. And you white knuckle through it, and the minute Lent was over, which wasn't Easter Sunday, was actually Holy Thursday. And so you can drink, and then, you're drinking on Good Friday. Well, that was a lot of interesting times in my life. So, I'm going into the story. I really kind of want to transition to where I am now. Last December, I went for my annual just check-in with my physician, and, you're going through how much do you drink? And my answer was too much. And, the provider kind of chuckled, and he's like, no, really, how much do you drink? I said, I drink too much. I don't know what answer you want, but I know I drink too much. And he could not have been more empathetic in that moment. And never really dressed anything. We did my blood work, and he handed me a series of paperwork that had a lot of different alternative healthcare providers on there, things including yoga, CBD, and then page 3 was this alcohol experiment.
Holy
And
moly.
yeah, and it was
Cool.
just super interesting. And I just took it all in. And this was like kind of the latter part of the, like right around December 20th, right? And so we go into the holiday, and I'm just kind of thumbing through it. And I had done sober January before. And I just happened to kind of look at that, and I logged on, Google, what is this live alcohol experiment? And I'm like, okay, I'm going to give it a whirl, because I've done dry January. I know I can go 30 days. Heck, I can go 365 days without drinking. But why not kind of give this a try? So I ordered the book and decided, hey, I'm going to do this 30 days with the whole intent of I'm going to learn to moderate, because when I just have a couple of drinks, I'm fine. I know I'm not going to piss anybody off. I'm not going to upset my spouse, and I'm not going to waste the next day, feeling hungover. So I get my book, and I'm getting ready to really dive full steam ahead. And New Year's Eve, I decide, well, I'm going to go out like a bang. So I drank plenty on New Year's Eve, and it was just me, myself, and I, because my spouse would be, I don't want to be around you. She'd gone into her room, and I watched the ball drop on TV and partied myself to sleep, and woke up the next day. All right, I'm going to do the live alcohol experiment. So here we are. I do the live alcohol experiment, and we start getting into the science of how alcohol works in the brain. And I was like, okay, this makes sense. And I could not get enough. I was like fast forwarding. I read the whole book like during week 1. I listened to every video, multiple times. And, being an academic person, the science piece just was hook, line, and sinker. It made sense to me. And I started to really look at how alcohol had impacted my life from, the decades that I had drank. And the one thing that it did for me immediately that gave me, I think, the grace to go forward was learning that it wasn't about me as the human. There wasn't anything inherently bad about Lynnie. There was something inherently addictive about alcohol. And that gave me a great sense of peace, because I had beat myself up. I had been beaten up by others who don't have the knowledge of what addiction is and how it's not the human, that it is the substance. So that gave me a sense of a lot of self-forgiveness that I had carried, that had manifested itself in eating disorders. And Sam, we share some things that you have opened up about that. And just the anxiety and self-hatred that I had, thinking that Lynnie was inherently flawed because I couldn't drink like a normal person. I was able to get a lot of clarity around that during that live alcohol experiment.
There's just to say something to this, Lynnie, because it's such a powerful point. Whatever journey people are on, be it a journey with This Naked Mind, be it a journey with Present and Sober, be it a journey with AA, wherever, this isn't going to be the case for everybody. But the power of learning the science and the patterns is that because we're seeing everything through our own lens, there are things going on that don't look like science, that don't look like withdrawal. For example, it might not look like every 4 days or something when your mind's going, oh, well, one would be okay. But because we don't consider that may be coming from a drug leaving our system, we think it's us. So, and because we live through our filter and we don't have awareness of those biases and what's going on, we don't see that. So the moment we learn the science, the moment we get a picture of what's going on from outside of ourselves, and we get to see at the body level, at the substance level, at the level of how the drug works, actually a lot of what you said is crazy. Amazing things can happen. Shame can fall away, because in an instant we can realize, oh, fuck, it's not me. It's not me. Like I'm not like broken. There's nothing wrong with how my body or mind is reacting to this thing. So I just wanted to point that out, because I think that's so powerful to know. And it's not going to be the golden ticket for everybody. But if you are on an alcohol-free journey and you haven't looked into and educated yourself about the science of alcohol and what it is doing and what it isn't doing, go do that. Go do that, because it may just open levels of understanding and freedom to you that you literally just don't know that's possible. So please do carry on, Lenny. But I just wanted to, it's just such a powerful point. I wanted to talk to it.
I could not agree more. And I didn't know anything about what it did from a scientific perspective. All I know is that it made me feel better in the moment. It soothed my fear. It soothed my anxiety. At least I thought, right? When we go to unpack that, I now know differently. But I went through the alcohol experiment and I couldn't get enough. And at the end of that 31 days or 30 days, there were some options of, hey, if you want to take this a little bit further, there's this program called The Path. And I was like, sign me up.
I mean,
there was just no question about it, because moderating just did not make sense to me anymore. And that 30 days really wasn't hard. I was actually really kind of proud about it. And, everybody just, oh, okay, she's just doing dry January. And I really didn't know what I was doing. All I knew was that I wasn't drinking and I was learning along the way. And then when I got into this path, my mind was just blown in the sense that, okay, I am healing, I am learning, I can be something different. And as we started to move through that, now I've been in this program a little over 8 months now, but I could not get enough of it. And I decided early on in January, even through the live alcohol experiment, I was like, okay, self-help and taking care of this issue is going to be a priority for me. And by issue, I mean, I didn't know that it really was so much more than alcohol. And we'll talk about that here, I'm sure. I mean, alcohol led me here, or my relationship with alcohol led me here, but what I've been able to unpack and address far exceeds alcohol. Alcohol was, one little tiny piece, that I was using to mask all this other stuff that was going on. But I made it a priority. And so I put the lives and the FAQs on my calendar. I carved out time in my day, and it has extended my work day. Sometimes I work from 7 to 9 p.m. To accommodate jumping on a call. So I made it a priority. I didn't ask. I said I would be forgiven later. So if anybody, current employers, are going to be watching this, it is what it is. But what I submit is that doing this has made my entire life better. I am a better employee. I'm a better manager. My life is better. And so the reason it's so much better is I made this a priority. I dove into everything. I've done the work, and being a part of something greater than me to help heal and understand all the reasons that I was using alcohol. And that was probably one of the most powerful exercises that we kicked off in this path. And actually we did it in the alcohol experiment as well, is listing all the reasons why I drank.
Yeah.
And then listing all the reasons why I wanted to stop. And they were mirror images of each other. And by and large, they were mirror images of each other. I drink to relieve stress. Drinking makes me stressed. I drink because I have anxiety. Drinking created other anxiety. But I have regularly revisited my whys, and it's super powerful. And if I would give one piece of advice to anybody that's listening to this, do that exercise. Write down all the reasons you drink and all the reasons why you may want to stop. And I bet you'll find a lot of commonality there.
Yeah, it requires a bit of courage, because often, particularly people that haven't been in kind of a very progressive and science-based approach, they may be afraid to actually sit down and write down all the ways they think alcohol is serving them. It makes sense, right? Like if I sit down and make this list of all the ways I think alcohol is kind of good, then surely I'm going to get wrapped up in that. But the truth is, we don't drink for the reasons that we don't drink. We drink for the reasons that we do. Now, the moment we look at those in the cold light of day, and can actually piece by piece realize that they're not true, or that actually they appear true here, but how can that be the case? Because I've got this contradictory statement sat right by it, like you're saying, Lynnie. That's the courage, that's the bravery. Because the moment those things move away, things look really different. Because if at a conscious or subconscious level, if we believe that something is good for us, in air quotes, then it's going to make sense for us to carry on doing that. The moment those things start falling away, different things will make sense to us. So for anyone who's listening to Lynnie and thinking, really? Like, it's really powerful. And that fuel of moving away from the pain, that, that tank will run out. Like, great. And we should be grateful for that, because we heal, we move away from the pain. But actually, Lynnie, what you're pointing to is then having this extra tank of fuel, which, the path works with a lot, to kick in, that's renewable, that isn't going to run out. So you don't end up continually going back to we never go back to where we started, but it can feel like that. So yeah, that's great. I agree with that completely. And people that I think have a huge success, one thing that they all have in common is that they are deeply attached to their why and their intention, and they continually check in with it. And the fact that you saw that, I have no doubt, is the deepest reason for this incredible opening that you've had happen in your life.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's something that I encourage others to do in our community. Good, bad, or indifferent. I have a lot of friends that I've connected with, for whatever reason, and they're asking for just additional support. And that's always the first thing I say is, all right, well, let's go back to your whys, and it does open things up. And sometimes those whys are put right back in front of us, on a periodic occasion. But nonetheless, it is just, it's so amazing. This program, for me, and I think for many, many others, it just allows you to break that vicious cycle. I mean, you just mentioned that we don't go back to exactly where we came from. And I would say yes, but there are a lot of very similarities that, the behavior is very predictive, right? If we drink alcohol, we know we're not going to have a restful night's sleep. We know it can increase our anxiety, increase our fear. And then we know it takes a certain amount of time for it to leave the body. And then we start all over again. Yeah. And it may be a slightly different experience, but what this program has done for me is to really unpack the science, which was for me just the pinnacle piece that got me to see that I'm not flawed. And then that gave me the ability to start looking at all the other stuff, and particularly the thoughts. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to know about that, and I'm sure Ellie would as well. I'm speaking for her with their funny voice right now, but that shift from this is about alcohol, and I'm going to work on that, to then the opening of actually, this isn't. Like, that's the tip of the iceberg. It's over there. It's over there. Was there a specific moment that you could put a finger on, or did it feel like a kind of an evolution and a falling away, or a shift in understanding over time?
For me, I think it was just evolutionary. It was like, okay, I've removed the substance and my body started to heal. I'm physically feeling better. I'm sleeping better. I'm thinking more clearly. And when I say that, it wasn't as though I was living in this clouded space. I was just distracted. I mean, when you're chronically fatigued and chronically dehydrated and chronically malnourished, your brain just doesn't function as well. Yeah. And so when I remove the alcohol, increase my water intake, I mean, I feel like a fish. I mean, I drink so much water, which is fantastic. And your body, just that energy that we create inside, that healthy energy, it just gave me the ability to start thinking more clearly, whether I was thinking about our lesson on the path, or if I was doing something work related, or even in just a conversation with somebody in my family. I was physically more present, and that just kind of started to happen, and it just got better and better and better. And I can honestly say, as I stand here before you, or sit here before you, that it is amazing to have just a clear head all the time. And even on your shittiest day, because we're going to have shitty days, whether you drink or not. I mean, you're still going to wake up sometimes in a bad mood, or somebody's going to upset you, or you're going to have some stressors. All I can say is that I am so much better equipped to handle that now, and to process it and to think about it for what it is. And, learning that our thoughts are just so powerful, and these neural pathways that we have developed throughout the years of this chronic ill thought, or, the lies that we told ourselves, or the habits that we created, and to go and learn, wow, we can undo that. And this is how you do it, step by step by step. And that has just been incredibly powerful.
Yeah, I mean, it can seem like, I think a lot of people, they're like, oh, this is some seriously bad news. Like, my brain's changed. I've got these neural pathways. I've got these repeated, these pathways in my mind. But actually, when we learn about how it works, the wonderful thing about that is, yes, literally your brain protein will shift according to your beliefs, right? But the amazing thing about that is that you can follow that back home, and you can literally create a different reality. Because as you say, Lynnie, we're living through our lens 100% of the time, our thoughts, our beliefs, all of that stuff, conscious, subconscious. So the moment you start just using that paintbrush to paint a different picture, it might take a little while, but it doesn't take long. And suddenly then you're literally inhabiting a new reality. You look around you and you're like, oh my goodness me, like, is this real? Is it possible? It's kind of like your head comes out of the, the goldfish bowl, and you're like, oh my goodness. It's wild. It's literally inhabiting a new reality. And I think that's why I love, there's so much hope in what you're saying, and there's such a powerful message, because for many people it can feel impossible at the beginning, or they might not even know what they're looking at. They might not know what's possible. I think listening to you share, I don't know if you did really. And here you are.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, I have been given things, that I didn't know I needed, and I didn't know existed. I mean, through this process, I have just gained a perspective and an appreciation of things that were never top of mind for me. And it's really hard to explain, and it's hard to put my finger on it, but that's also, I think, kind of the magic of it, is that it just happened. I mean, I shared the other day, it happened to have been on my birthday, but I'm genuinely experiencing what I firmly believe is just pure, true joy that I don't think I ever had. And I was sharing this with my wife the other day, and she's like, well, that makes me sad. I said, well, no, I don't be sad about it. And I think where she was coming from was, we've had a lot of good moments. Haven't you had some joy in there? And of course they had, but to really feel it in my core, like existing in this place of peace and contentment, and not have to think about it. It's been the biggest gift that I've been given. And I know that, like I said, there'll be days where life happens, but I now have a toolbox to deal when life happens. And one of the greatest things that I remind myself and others now is, I now know better. And when I know better, I can do better. And that's why I'm on a mission to share this experience with anybody who will hear me out. And that's why, as I've gone through this PATH program, it became abundantly clear, I want to be like my coaches. I want to be a coach. And, I've been a coach my whole life. I mean, I just kind of come from a team mentality. Being one of 11 kids, it was easy to do. And in my professional life, I happen, to coach my clients. I coach my team, and it just made sense. I want to continue this. And so I prayed a lot about it, and got that opportunity to evaluate whether or not this Naked Mind coaching program would want good old Lynnie to get educated. And I could not be more excited to share that I'm going to be starting the coaching program here in a few short weeks.
Cool.
And it's just the beginning of something that I truly feel that I'm being called to do. I look at this opportunity for me to change generations of beliefs on a go forward basis. I didn't share this earlier, but I'll share it now. I mean, I mentioned I have two brothers that are, actively in AA. I've had two sisters that have succumbed their lives to addiction, and one from alcohol and one from food. And I want to do this because for them and for their children and for their grandchildren, for all of my nieces and nephews, for my friends, their family, their children, because it's just so important that the attention that our culture has given alcohol and it being, so acceptable and it being, one of the most highly addictive drugs, that conversation needs to change. And I am hell-bent on being part of that conversation. And I could not be more excited to continue to learn on how best I can relay this message. Again, to anyone who will listen. We talk about not evangelizing. I'm not afraid to evangelize. I am careful on how I do that. But people are starting to ask questions. People are wanting a little bit more of, hey, what are you doing over here? And I cannot be more excited to be a part of this. This is a revolution that I want to sign my name to. And I've not been, especially being one, a member of the LGBTQ community. There's always been a lot of opportunities, to really stand up. And I never really viewed that part of my life as anything other than I have brown eyes. I mean, it's just part of who I am. This to me is my next calling. This is what I'm supposed to be doing, is to help others find this freedom. And it is available. And if you'll do the work, it is absolutely yours for the taking.
You've got so much to offer, Lynnie. I'm going to break through the silence to say, when I discovered that you had signed up for coach training, like the feeling in my own body of like, oh my goodness, like this is how impactful this stuff is. And what you described about breaking those generational cycles, that to me, there's nothing more important. And to help people to wake up to their lives and to be able to experience them in a way that where they can be fully present. Yes, we're not always fully present 100% of the time, but to be able to start to recognize what that place is and to touch it more often. I loved how you described the joy that you're feeling and that the interaction with your wife. It's not that we've necessarily like those things have always been there, but we just haven't been present to them. And so for me, there's no more important work than helping other people to see what's real and what's really true for them as individuals. So I was so thrilled. It's like one of those moments of like jumping around the room. Like I couldn't think of anybody, more ready for this. And so I'm so excited to see how this plays out for you.
Well, that gives me just so much confidence, and I so appreciate your kind words. As I've gone through this program, and one of the most amazing things is the community of, it's one thing to have, the live call and get that coaching or, receive something whilst one of your pathmates is getting coached, but having that dialogue and these relationships that have come out of that. So many folks months and months ago, before I even contemplated that, oh, you would be a good coach. I was like, yeah, whatever, but as I have reflected back, I mean, it's just really been this opportunity to really share in this experience. I mean, this isn't my journey. This is our journey. Yeah. And everybody that is in that group and everyone who wants to change their relationship with alcohol, this is a collective journey that we're all on. And it's just so exciting. And, I have great aspirations of sharing my knowledge and expertise that is yet to come with certain parts of our community, from a professional perspective, Alcohol has been a way for a lot of folks to climb their way, or as I'd say, drink their way to the top. You know, the corporate culture of alcohol. I want to help change that because I think it's so important. And I've been beginning to have some conversations in my professional life in and around that. And then in the LGBTQ community, substance abuse is a real issue because individuals don't have the coping skills to really deal with the rejection that they feel from their families and their communities. And I really want to help bridge that gap and share this experience that you can get through those thoughts and you can get through life and get the support that you need without substance. And so I'm really hoping to give back to those different communities. And again, anybody else who will listen.
I've absolutely no doubt that you're going to create waves, Lynnie. And you know what sort of occurred to me as you were talking? I'm sat here and I'm thinking, whoa, like, look, Lynnie's here with this fire in her belly to go on this mission. Now, where did that stem from? It stemmed from turning over a piece of paper in a doctor's where someone had bravely put something different on a piece of paper. Now, they didn't even necessarily mention it or vocalize it, but you just saw that. Now, that's just one moment in time, one tiny moment in time. Can you imagine the ripple effect or the waves that will come from? I mean, it's crazy. Like, and we're all doing this. We're planting those seeds everywhere. That doctor just planted that seed, probably didn't even know the impact that he was having. You're going to do the same thing. We don't know. I once said to Ellie, it's a little bit like, like a lighthouse and there's all those boats out there and some of them, they wave at you and they let you know, but there's a whole bunch out there. There's a whole bunch. And sometimes we just have to trust that they're looking anyway, because the moment the light goes out, sometimes the boats are like, I don't know where to go. So, and that's really worth knowing for the journey. And I have every, you use the word confidence there. I mean, absolutely, buddy. Like, just to echo exactly what Ellie said, I can't think of anyone more ready. And it's been our privilege to be on the journey with you. It's going to be our privilege to see how you grow and evolve, and what an amazing way for us to loop back and have a conversation again once you've been through TNMI, once you've had that experience and you've got more clarity around what that's going to look like and how you're going to use your amazing voice. Yeah, I just think this is the beginning. Like, in the way, this is the thing, right? In a funny way, like, we're moving towards like what might feel like an ending towards with the path, but it isn't. With every ending is a new beginning. Yeah. And I know that all your pathmates are going to be so freaking proud of you as well, pal. And I don't need to say that. They're going to tell you. But it's just so nice to share in this.
Oh, Sam, you always tell us to trust what we know, right? Yeah. And I know that this was part of my existence. This is what I know, is that this is my next chapter. And I am just honestly so grateful that I was led here. And I did reach out to my healthcare provider because I wanted to mention their name. And I had told this individual, through my chart, and over here, I don't know if y'all have my chart over in the UK, but you can email and look at your medical records and whatnot here in the States. And I let him know, hey, I started the live alcohol experiment. I'm on day 15. This is really cool. And he's like, oh, that's great. Let me know how it goes. And then I go, hey, I'm going into the path. And then, I knew I was going to be on this. I reached out, I said, hey, I would really like to, give you some credit here. And he said, that would be fine, but I'm not currently AF. And I said, okay, well, no worries. I want to give you credit for, you handed me a piece of paper that changed my life.
Yeah.
And so, doctor, you know who you are. And I think it's fantastic. And I just, I am thrilled to be a part of this institution and really excited to contribute in any way that I can.
Well, thank you for coming and sharing that. And we're so excited to hear where this goes, and we look forward to the next time we get to sit and have this conversation, pal.
Well, thank you both. It's been a privilege to waffle with you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lynnie, and thank God for my voice, because I've just got to sit and absorb it, and it's just been truly wonderful. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much, Lynnie.
Oh, thank you both. It's a privilege.
Well, Lynnie, thank you so much for coming on and sharing. That's such an inspirational story, and just what an amazing thing. Like, we can go from, feeling like we don't quite know the way out the maze to literally helping people find their way out the maze so quickly with the level of understanding that is now available in certain areas, like what me and Ellie are trying to present on the podcast to the best of our ability, what we're doing in our groups, what This Naked Mind are doing, what you're going to find around so many places now. There's so many different ways to find freedom from alcohol and then start giving back, which is just the ultimate paying it forwards when we realise just how incredible an alcohol-free life can be. Hey team, you have one amazing week, and we'll see you soon.